around the nation. TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Welcome to the show. We're here. Oh my God, what's going on here? I have a background. I'm just testing out new backgrounds, guys, so don't worry. I'm not in a fancy high-tech studio, but that would be super cool. Patreon.com/TYT Nation. I'm not saying anything except for what I just said. We got a great show for you guys today. Again, testing backgrounds. See if you guys like it or not. Hey, give me feedback, right? Feedback helps. If it looks like super tacky, then I'll get rid of it. But so far, kind of like it. Very interesting looking. I'm semi-pro. I look semi-pro now. Yeah, semi-pro. Anyway, a lot of stuff here we're going to talk about, including Donald Trump versus John Bolton, the hero that we deserve. Oh, God. I think I just threw open my mouth a little bit there. I mean, yikes. Okay, so now we'll talk about that. Then we've got another farmer turning on Donald Trump. And I believe this seems to be a pattern. And so we're going to talk about that. We have another possible person joining the presidential race. I don't know if that exactly will happen. But we'll see. We'll see. Then we have, of course, some important policy implications. We have the leader for the Medicare for All opposition. So we're going to talk about who's leading the fight against Medicare for All. And so know your enemy, right? And then disastrous news for Kamala Harris. We have her AG record. Oh boy. You'll see what she fought against. So anyway, so there's that. Again, a lot of important stuff here we're going to talk about. Debate night tonight. So there's a debate, the fourth Democratic debate. 14 people. I believe it's 14 people. Too many people. Okay, so already my prediction is, and you guys can chime in. In fact, I want to see your predictions as well, because I want to read those in the comments. So during the show, before we take a break, send me your comments on what you think the will happen in today's debate. So, just like what's going to happen? Here's my prediction, and let me start this off, right? My prediction is that they will, and this is hosted by the New York Times, I believe. The moderators will ask Bernie Sanders questions basically related to his health. So they'll go after Bernie Sanders on his health. Everybody else will get probably 30 seconds to a minute to speak total. And I'm saying the lower tier candidates. I'm pretty sure that they might make an exception for Beto O'Rourke, Pete Buttigieg, or Amy Klobuchar. One of those people will be called on more than the others. Andrew Yang will be ignored. 12 candidates. Thank you. 14, if two people join that I have talked about already. So we'll see what happens. Joe Biden, of course, is going to say something stupid, and he will be immediately memed, which will be fun. Elizabeth Warren will be called probably the winner, along with Buttigieg. And again, most of the moderators will harp on Bernie Sanders' health. Oh, yeah, and climate change will be virtually ignored. So those are my predictions. We'll see what happens. We will see. Okay. So now there's that. I'll wait till after the break to shout out patrons and channel members. So we'll do that because I want to just address something really quickly, right? And that's Ashley Marie Preston, right? So now she was on a TYT panel. She's like a recurring co-host, and she made some pretty terrible tweets. I'm not going to read those, but they were basically bigoted. They were transphobic and racist tweets. So, yikes. So now, the reason I want to talk about it real quick is just to say that those tweets are incredibly problematic. She did apologize for them, and that's good. But at the same time, the thing that people are angry about is not because of the tweets, is because she was a a surrogate for Elizabeth Warren, and so a lot of people didn't know that, um, and so now they're kind of jumping on TYT for it. Uh, so I kind of want to defend TYT a little bit here, because it's like, for one, you didn't know about the tweets, right? You're supposed to go back and vet everybody's tweets all the way back to 2010 before they can even come on the show. It sets a little bit of an unrealistic standard for a company that doesn't have a lot of resources. So let's be fair. It's like, if I have a guest on the show, you guys expect me to go back and vet every single tweet. That would be time consuming and ridiculous. And so I wouldn't get them to, get on them too much for the tweets. Again, that's on her. And she did, unfortunately, have a really poor apology for that tweet, or for those tweets. Uh, and I'm just going to not get into that. But the thing that people are mad about is that she was a Warren surrogate. And so she would say things about Bernie Sanders that aren't necessarily true, that he didn't go to any LGBTQ events since the 1970s. It's demonstrably untrue. And so, people are mad because, like, hey, she was saying untrue things about Bernie Sanders, and she's a Warren surrogate, and you guys didn't tell us. Well, to be fair, TYT did tell people. And so, maybe in the future, because they couldn't tell everybody every single clip. For those who watched the live show, you guys knew, right? And so what I suggest they should do is just put it on a chyron or a lower third. I mean, that'd be a pretty easy fix. And I think that would be a good policy going forward. Like, if somebody's a surrogate, it doesn't matter what campaign it is, John Delaney, Bernie Sanders even. You have a Bernie Sanders surrogate on the show, well, then, of course, you should put that in the lower third for transparency purposes. And so I don't think this is a nefarious thing from TYT, obviously. But it's probably one of those oversights. And it's, a small oversight with possibly big implications. And so just going into the future, stick it in a lower third. And just say, surrogate for X campaign, and then Twitter and whatever, right? That would be my solution to it. And so, but there's this, again, giant dust up, and I understand transparency, and I agree with the need for transparency. And so, I would do that. I would make sure that we have full transparency. And look, I do it on my show, and they should definitely do it on the main show. And certainly Anna was receptive to, hey, we'll do better. We are going to do better. So, anyway, going forward, let's get into the first story. Okay. All right. And President Trump thinks that former National Security Advisor John Bolton is out to get him. Because of course he is, right? And by the way, any story that involves John Bolton possibly being a good guy, I instantly despise. But we're talking about it, right? Now, the Daily Beast is reporting that ever since Bolton left last month, either got fired or resigned. I'm not entirely sure. I believe he did actually get fired because he disagreed with Donald Trump. But that relationship, ever since that happened, between he and the president has gotten to the point where he has become basically an enemy to the administration. So now, in this case, the enemy of my enemy is not my friend, because John Bolton's a war criminal. But nonetheless, this has an interesting dynamic. So now, according to the Beast, 3 people familiar with Trump's private conversations said the president speculated that the former national security advisor was behind anonymous accounts that listed Bolton as one of the top officials deeply disturbed by the Ukraine pressure campaign. So, that's where President Trump wrote the law and pressured the Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, by holding aid money over his head and saying, hey, can you do a favor for me? Investigate the Bidens. And so you can't do that if you're president of the United States. That is personal corruption because it's to help him in his campaign dig up dirt on his political enemies. And so you can't do that. It's a big no-no. But okay, anyway. So now Trump, according to one source, was clearly implying something to the effect of, oh, gee, I wonder who the source on that could be. Look, I don't know, right? Honestly, I don't know who the leaker is. Or, like if John Bolton is specifically a leaker. He probably could be. It's very likely. It's also likely that there's so many people in the administration right now that are concerned about President Trump that they're probably all leaking at this point. And again, anybody who cares about preserving the rule of law should be very concerned over the president's actions, especially when it comes to getting favors from foreign powers. But anyway, and by the way, on that, the president's not above the law. That's why it's important. We're not ruled by a king. We kind of hold a whole revolution over that. And so, yes, we like to hold our president to a somewhat higher standard. At least you would think, right? But apparently not with Trump. Okay, anyway. So now, neither Bolton or White House had commented on the president's suspicions, but Trump ally Matt Schlapp talked to the Daily Beast. And this is fun. Now, he believes that the leaks are coming from career folks inside who hate Donald Trump, of which there will probably be a great many. Although he says, I'm not really certain it could be Bolton. Okay, fair enough, right? Look, I think a lot of people inside do despise Donald Trump. Not because, they're liberal plants, they're leftovers from the Obama administration, blah, 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 right? They hate Trump just because they hate him. They hate him because they hate him. Okay, well, no. Here's the thing. Donald Trump stabs everybody in the back. Even the most loyal people. Look at Michael Cohen. I mean, look at all the people he stabbed in the back. I mean, talk to the Kurds. They might have a thing or two to say. But, he's only loyal to himself. We know that. And is really, really unintelligent. Anybody who actually cares about governance would be unnerved by President Trump. And that's why even Republicans are like, dude, no, not interested at all. This guy's a moron, and he's actually going to hurt the conservative movement down the line. So that's going to hurt all of us. Now, that said, Schlapp continues. He says, and this is funny. Quote, Trump's smarter than that, although he does aggressively defend himself. No, Trump's not smarter than that. No, he's an absolute idiot. Now, it's important to note why Matt Schlapp is saying that. His wife, Mercedes, happens to work for the Trump re-election campaign. So, yeah, let's be fair about that. Now, Trump, deeply paranoid. I don't really blame him at this point because there are a lot of people who are against him, and for good reason. So apparently, he no longer trusts anyone to put out his messages, and that's why there's not a lot of people out there actually fighting against the impeachment inquiry on TV, except for himself and Rudy Giuliani. And of course, that's making his other allies a little nervous. In fact, a veteran GOP consultant, John Brabender, says there's a certain level of frustration that all of a sudden the president says something, then Rudy does, and it's not always consistent. There's a frustration that not everybody knows what they should be doing. It is not that they can't defend the president. It is a frustration that they don't know exactly how they're supposed to defend the president. So basically, no one knows what they're doing. It's a complete madhouse. It's chaos. And why? Of course, it's because the leader is an idiot. He's deeply, deeply unintelligent. He's ironically running this just like he runs his businesses. of which he crashed and went bankrupt 6 times. Just saying, not a smart person, not a good manager. His managerial style is complete and utter dysfunction. And so, of course, nobody knows how to defend him. And then when they do try to defend him and fail, he blames him. He says, "How dare you? Why did you go and look like an idiot on TV? Because you wanted me to. You can't win with this guy. You can't. You can't." So now, again, people close to him are saying, "Well, that's why he gets nothing done. Not because he's an idiot. No. It's because apparently it's this vast conspiracy to try to take out Donald Trump, to try to stop him, and that is why Donald Trump can't get anything done. It has nothing to do with the fact that he basically can't control Congress at this point. A lot of congressional Republicans secretly despise him, and plus they already got their tax cuts, so I guess they're like, okay, well, we got that. Now all we have to do is just publicly defend him every once in a while, and we'll be fine. And we'll continue to get the idiots to vote for us. The idiots, of course, being the Donald Trump base. Now, let me give you another quote here from a former campaign aide, Sam Nunberg. So this is interesting, right? So now he talks about why stuff doesn't get done and why, of course, what he dislikes most in the media, I should say. So now he said, in my experience, what he despises is somebody writing that Donald Trump feels under siege and that his emotions are this and his thinking is this. He hates people saying what he is thinking. So what does he do? Trump leaks on himself to counter the outside leaks. And then we find out, of course, what I was saying all along, who the biggest leaker in the White House is. It's not John Bolton. It's not Kellyanne Conway. No, it's Donald Trump himself. Awesome. One of his most frequent tricks, according to Nunberg, in terms of talking about himself on background, is him having the reporter say he is someone, quote, familiar with the president's thinking. So he kind of turns it. And look, one thing that I give Trump credit for is he's good at PR, he's good at marketing. And so that is actually not a bad rhetorical trick. No, I've got this information, but you need to say that people familiar with the president's thinking to counter what the press is doing, of course, is talking to people also familiar with the president's thinking. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. So now what's interesting about this is that sources are saying that Trump is counting on the media to defend him when it comes to impeachment. Again, going back to him not trusting anybody except for him and Giuliani. Quote, this is, like I said, according to a Senate source. He's apparently so anxious about GOP support in the Senate, he's taken to sending Wall Street Journal columns against the House inquiry. So he's scared. He's worried. Like, I don't know, the Senate could vote to impeach and remove me. That might be a really bad thing. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just blanket it with pro-me articles. And, I'm gonna send them all to my Republican colleagues in the Senate and hope that they listen. Fascinating. Now, in short, basically he has no idea what he's doing and is relying on a desperate strategy to keep Republicans in line. Now, that does not bode well for the president. Again, all you have to do is to have about 20-ish Republicans defect and vote in favor of impeachment and removal. That's it. 35 have said, off the record, if it were a silent vote, right, or if it were an anonymous vote, they would immediately vote to impeach and remove the president. He is not doing well. Not at all. And has no idea how he's going to get out of this hole he dug for himself. Sad. Okay. Fun. Moving on. Let's go to the trade war. I haven't talked about that in a while. Still going on, weirdly enough. Okay.
you know, at the end of the day, my name's Chris Gibbs. It's not Judas, and I'm not going to sell my political moorings for 30 pieces of silver. So no, I'm out.
So that was a former county Republican chair in Ohio saying that he is done with President Trump. So that's Chris Gibbs, and apparently not Judas, who's a soybean farmer, back to Trump in 2016, saying to CNBC, "That's it, I'm done. I can't listen to the lies anymore. I can't trust his promises when it comes to actually helping me with my business. I'm devastated, and I'm not voting for this guy because he has no idea what he's doing." And so, again, Trump has been lying about getting deals with China. In fact, Trump said that China was willing to buy up about $15 billion in U.S. agriculture. And Gibbs is like, yeah, but he said that before. And what happened? Nothing's happened. And so that's the problem. Trump lies, he gaslights the American people. And while that does work on some voters, if you're a soybean farmer, all you have to do is look at your bank account. All you have to do is look at how much product you're moving, how much product you're selling, how much you're growing, and realize that, oh, it appears that Donald Trump is not honest. I know, right? So now, in fact, here's the thing, right? Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin just admitted to another Trump lie that the deal with China that President Trump has been out there saying recently, we got such a strong deal with China coming together. They're going to buy billions of dollars in American soybeans. So farmers, you can still vote for me. No, it's not going to happen. In fact, Mnuchin said this, quote, "There's still some issues that need to be worked out in wording. But I would say we have every expectation that phase one will close." How many phases are there? Really? If there's a lot of them, disaster. So now, him coming out and saying, "Oh, we don't have a deal yet," means that there is every opportunity for Trump to mess it up. Maybe sending an errant tweet, because you know that is very likely to happen. So, yeah. Again, this guy's not buying it. And in fact, I want to give you the rest of the video where Gibbs explains himself and has this conversation about soybeans. Believe me, it is actually more interesting than it sounds. So why don't we go to that video? Watch.
Chris, welcome. It's good to see you. And you're saying you don't believe anything until the soybeans are on the boat?
And I've said that. I don't believe it until they're on the boat. This is deja vu all over again. The president promised massive purchases from Mexico. He promised massive purchases from the EU. He's now promised massive purchases from the Chinese, and he's done that before. But let's just think about this a minute. Somebody has to kind of speak truth to power here a little bit. Let's just think about this. We've been selling $21 billion worth of agricultural products to China, and they're going to double that. Mm-hmm. And we don't even know if it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. We don't even know what the time period is. So I'm really dubious. And I hate to be a downer on this all the time, but somebody has to be practical.
Well, and it's significant to note, and correct me if I'm wrong, you voted for Trump in 2016. Your farm spans 2 counties that overwhelmingly supported the president in the next election. As I understand it, you say you wouldn't support him now. Is that right?
No, I'm not going to vote for the president, and I'm on record as saying that. So, but it doesn't matter what he comes up with now. He could come up with this $50 billion. He could walk across my pond and not get wet, and I'm still not going to vote for him because, you know, at the end of the day, my name's Chris Gibbs. It's not Judas, and I'm not going to sell my political moorings for 30 pieces of silver. So, no, I'm out.
I love that. I mean, look, he could walk across water. I'm not going to vote for the guy because he's an idiot. And he lies constantly. And my business has suffered as a result. Look, this is a situation if you're a farmer in the Midwest. Look, and it doesn't matter how many times he tries to bail you out with, $16 billion, in farm aid. Most of that has gone to giant farming corporations anyway, giant agribusiness. So it hasn't gone to the regular farmer. And so even this guy says, look, it doesn't matter. I want my business back. I want to actually be able to sell my product. And look at, in a part of the interview that I actually cut out, guys like, look, all we've done, like Trump has made promises, and then there was a little bit of speculation that lifted up the market based on this deal, and we barely just got enough back in what it costs. So the production cost of growing these soybeans, not exactly encouraging. And so, look, this shows how much of a disaster this trade war with China has actually been, and for what? No real reason, except that Trump can say, "It's tough on China." Well, good for you. But you have failed the people that have voted for you. And so here's the thing, right? Remember, most of the thing, and this is the biggest thing that is going to take down Trump, is not impeachment. It's him lying to the voters and then not delivering. Remember, the wall, not built. The trade wars are a disaster. Not everybody has health care. In fact, health care is worse off than it was before. And their health care plan would have kicked millions of people off insurance without any sort of replacement. The tax cuts for the rich largely benefited, surprise, the rich. What does he really have to run on other than putting people in cages? Even staying out of wars. Again, right now, our people, our soldiers, have actually been attacked by the Turkish military. I know. And so we're in Syria, kind of in Syria still. We're just not in those areas that right now, northern Syria, that's being pounded by Turkish soldiers. Trump just moved 1,000 more troops over to Saudi Arabia. And so we're still involved in that, ridiculous thing when it comes to Yemen. And so what has he really done? What has he really done? Not a whole lot. But I understand that there is a rabid base of people that will stick with Trump no matter what, because they actually do believe he walks on water. But I don't know if that base will be enough for him to win re-election, especially with what could be a disastrous economy incoming. Now, that is unless, of course, the Democrats put up a candidate that is so unappealing that they don't turn out. But I'm sure, of course, Democrats aren't dumb enough to do that again, right? Okay. Speaking of awful Democrats, you go to the next story. Yikes. Uh-oh. He's back. Maybe. Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg might be running for election after all. So running for president. Now, according to a CNBC report, Bloomberg has been talking to associates and told them in recent weeks that if Joe Biden, were to fail and drop out of the race before the voting begins, he would consider launching a late run for the nomination. Now, why is that? Well, he believes that the party is going too far to the left, and the person that has risen most in the polls as of late and is a really, really strong contender, Elizabeth Warren, might take the party too far left. Now, as a Bernie Sanders supporter, I look at that statement and I laugh. Because Elizabeth Warren, look, she's not deeply progressive. Yes, she's progressive on some issues and she has some decent plans, but too far to the left? I'm sorry, have you met Bernie Sanders? Have you heard of him? That's the candidate that I would go for. But anyway, okay, and that's the candidate, by the way, that should scare people like Michael Bloomberg the most. Anyway, now, let me go to the anonymous Bloomberg ally who said, quote, on the presidency, I think it's something he wants. He has not been shy about that. But nothing can happen unless Biden drops out, and that's not happening anytime soon. I'm not getting a lot of confidence from this. No, they're very concerned that Joe Biden is going to drop out. Again, Joe Biden, he's done that every single time he's run for president. He's run quite a few times. He's dropped out. Not good. So now they're like, no, find somebody. Michael Bloomberg, Hillary Clinton. Oh my God. I know, right? I just said 4, like curse words. Disaster. But okay, so now here's the thing. Again, Biden fades when they start getting into actual votes because he has this ability. The more he speaks, the less you like him. Kind of like Hillary Clinton. And by the way, he has, I think, more baggage than Hillary Clinton. So it's not good if you're running for president, which again, Biden has done several times and has never made it past the primary. So now, that's the thing, right? Sanders. So Bernie Sanders, he wants to fundamentally change the system, right? Warren, she wants to tweak the system, do a little bit of change on the outside edges, maybe a little bit more than that, but overall preserve fairly the same system, right? Again, Bernie Sanders wants to upend everything and overturn the apple cart. Joe Biden wants no change, none. In fact, look, he told donors that under me nothing will fundamentally change. So now who else ran on no change, right? And so look, Joe Biden, why is he running then if he doesn't want to change anything? Well, he's only running for himself so that he can become president. That in itself is the end goal, not to help people, not to put forward a bold agenda, just to become president because it's a status symbol. So yeah, of course, yeah, that's why I want to be president, just to be president. Well, we're not interested in that, Joe. And look, it's the same thing with Amy Klobuchar, the same thing with John Delaney. They're out for themselves. So look, most of the, I think, other establishment candidates are also the same thing. And not all of them. I do believe some of them actually do believe that, hey, man, look, this is where the country wants to go. And I think I'm the right person to be able to do that. Elizabeth Warren, I think, is one of those people. I think she believes that she's the best to try to change the system through her, I would say half-hearted progressive ideas, which, yes, go further than any of the other establishment candidates, but not far enough to actually have big change. And I don't know. I think Cory Booker actually believes. I know it's a strange thing to say. Beto, of course, I was born to be president. Get out of here with that crap. Get out of here. But anyway, back to Biden, Warren, Sanders, etc. Right. So again, there's the differences between the two. And again, Warren and Sanders have actually a big difference in between them. And so, as far as though Bloomberg is concerned, Bloomberg's running for one reason, and it's different, I think, than a lot of other people's. He wants to pay less in taxes. And keep it real, dude. Bloomberg is a billionaire. He's worth actually between $40 and $50 billion. So if somebody like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders wins, well, both of them have a wealth tax that's fairly progressive. Again, Warren's wealth tax is like sort of a half measure, but it's pretty decent. Where Bernie Sanders has an incredibly aggressive wealth tax. And so he's looking at that going, oh my God, I don't want to pay more taxes. No, I want to keep all my money. And so if I have to run as a spoiler and make sure that Donald Trump gets another 4 years, well, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. Unless, of course, Joe Biden wins the nomination because he promises no change. That's how these establishment billionaires operate. They would rather, again, run a spoiler, have Donald Trump win, than risk actually paying more. It's insane. It's all about their self-interest, protecting their social class. That's why these billionaires, they hate Bernie Sanders and they fear Elizabeth Warren. The rich are so incredibly sociopathic, and I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying a lot of them, that even the tiny tweaks that Elizabeth Warren proposes are enough to kick their greed and selfishness into high gear and let Donald Trump destroy the country for another 4 years. That's what would happen here. Okay. So now I believe the solution we need is Bernie Sanders. He's much more bold and progressive than anyone else. But also because I believe that every billionaire, like Michael Bloomberg, is a failure in policy and therefore should not exist. Okay. I think I'm fairly clear on that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to send in your predictions of what's going to happen during tonight's debate. I definitely want to read some of those. So we'll do that. And then we'll come back, read some comments. I'm going to thank some patrons and some channel members. And then we'll get back and go after the biggest opponent of Medicare for All and Kamala Harris. So tune in for that. So we'll be back a couple minutes right here around the nation. Welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, so let's start with some predictions. Then we'll get into thanking some members. Morlanko Agmathar says, I predict Yang will still get the least amount of time and will still give mostly neoliberal answer based in his UBI. He will occasionally get the problem right, but miss the solution. Okay. Let's see. Actus Magus says, I think the Bernie Warren tag team will probably hold together or another debate or two, or for another debate or two. After there's only 6 candidates or less on stage, and the gloves will come off. That's interesting. So there's some predictions. David Richardson says they'll try to use Bernie's interview about distinguishing from Warren against him. Oh, that's really good. Excellent predictions, guys. Jake Heck says Chad Sanders destroys the competition with facts and logics, steals everyone's girlfriend, the entire crowd throws her undergarments, and a full team of excavators takes him out. Nice. That's funny. Okay. So a lot of great predictions, guys. Love them. Let me give you some, I'll read some comments here from a couple of members. Elwell says, Hillary's having a dinner and conversation at 50K ahead the day after the debate and 3 weeks before the deadline to file for the ballot in Michigan and Alabama. She's running. Dear God, please no. Richard Star Trek says, our country can be okay, but wealthy people, corporations, religious freaks, and all the power-hungry, greedy jerks just keep ruining it. And Weird Riot says, to be fair, Biden's family could make a lot of money if Joe becomes president. That's also very, very true. Okay. There's that. Patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation. That's how you can support the show. I want to thank Kubrin and Damali Dixon. So patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation. And then I want to thank channel members, Valerie Craig and Alicia Smith. So thank you. You want to be a channel member, hit the join button below. Okay. Let's hope I have enough time for some stories. So let's move on. Let's get to the healthcare. Okay. Oh, yes. Also, super chats. I'm sorry. I keep missing those. Mark Davis says, I like the new background. Thank you. And Monica G says, I hope Bernie starts to take down Warren. So, okay. Thank you for those. Now let's do it. So Medicare for All is continuing to dominate the conversation around healthcare going into 2020. In fact, a lot of different politicians who are running for the Democratic nomination have some plan that has the word Medicare in it, even though it's not actually Medicare for All. So there's a lot of opposition to it as well from health insurance industry, lobbyists, drug companies. But now, according to The Intercept, we find out who the biggest foe is in relation to creating a real healthcare system that ensures everyone. So now, turns out that it's the hospitals themselves. Investor-owned hospitals, according to The Intercept, are leading the fight against single-payer national health insurance system, according to corporate filings reviewed by MapLight and The Intercept working together. So now, one of those big healthcare companies, I'm sorry, not healthcare companies, but hospital chains is Tenet Healthcare. It is the third largest investor-owned operator of hospitals and has donated about $630,000 to the Partnership for America's Healthcare Future. Now, what is that? Well, the Partnership for America's Healthcare Future, or PAHCF, is a dark money organization created last year in order to erode public support for single-payer healthcare. So now their incorporation records list lobbyists for the Federation of American Hospitals, which is a trade organization that represents Tenet and other investor-owned hospitals as one of its authorized representatives. So again, these aren't public hospitals, but public hospitals, or I should say not-for-profit hospitals, actually also have a lot of problems as well. But these are strictly for-profit hospitals. And so when it comes to for-profit, well, what's the thing that they want most? The investors do. They want a return on investment. So there's that. Sometimes they do that, of course, by getting a wing named after them. And so they donate and they get a wing, and then they get some PR, maybe a tax write-off, or they might get some money from it, some profit from that hospital. So now, I didn't realize actually before going into the story that it was the hospital industry that has been fighting so hard against single payer. You would think the leaders would be, lobbyists from big pharma, health insurance companies, which, by the way, are still putting a massive amount of money to fight against Medicare for all. But according to corporate records, these for profit hospital chains have been integral in drumming up opposition to any kind of major healthcare reform that involves single payer or the elimination of private insurance. So now, in August, the liberal politics and policy magazine American Prospect wrote the Democrats proposing healthcare reforms, quote, lack the courage to name the one major obstacle to getting any meaningful reform done. The hospitals and medical providers who create the most costs in the system by a wide margin. And it's very, very true, which is why I think a lot of people don't know this is the case. So now, what are the hospitals doing to drive up the cost? Well, they use things like surprise billing. Now, surprise billing, of course, occurs when a person visits a facility that's included in their insurance network. Everyone knows what that is. But while they're there, they are treated by an out of network provider. So your hospital's in network, but the doctor you might get that day during their visit happens to be out of network. Sad day for you guys. It looks like you're just going to get a bill from the provider. He's out of network. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Now, that massive bill, it turns out, is only a surprise for the patient. They know what they're doing. So now one of the arguments made by the hospital industry against single payer healthcare is that, yeah, but okay, so if you reduce our revenue by tamping down on the costs, and that's the biggest thing Medicare for All brings to the table, other than, of course, ensuring everybody with superior health insurance through the government. Well, it would reduce the costs, again, lower overhead, and be able to negotiate with hospitals to set prices. They say, well, if you do that, then we're going to have to close. Well, and so how do they base that on? Well, according to the American Hospital Association, Medicare only pays about 87% of the cost for caring for patients. So that 13%, I'm assuming, is being covered by the patient. Under Medicare for All, that'd be 100%, which is obvious. And look, maybe it's the patient, maybe it's supplementary insurance coverage. I'm not entirely sure. By contrast, private health insurers often pay hospitals 2 or 3 times what Medicare does in reimbursement rates. According to a study by the RAND Corporation, they found that Tenet hospitals on average charge private insurers 210% of what Medicare pays. Jesus, man. Look, that's where they get the profit. The insurance companies then will take that, will pay that, and they will pass down the cost to you, likely in an insurance markup. So now, these for-profit hospitals will also bribe politicians while in office, hire them to be in the boards to say things like this. And this is a quote from Bob Kerrey, who is a former Democratic governor, by the way, and U.S. Senator from Nebraska. Now, he serves on Tenet's board of directors, and he had written an op-ed for the Omaha World Herald about Medicare for All. And this is what he said, quote, he said it's a delusion. Really? He said that Americans long for a president who will ask us to pay more for the pleasure of increasing the role of the federal government in our lives. And of course, that's a very snarky statement there. So when you think about that, he's like, well, I doubt people will long for a president who will ask him to increase the power of government in our lives. Well, wait a minute. That's a Republican talking point. This guy's a Democrat. He sounds exactly like a Republican when it comes to healthcare. And look, he's not the only one. You've got Amy Klobuchar. You've got John Delaney. You've got all these establishment Democrats that despise Medicare for All. Why? It's because they're paid to do so. And now we know who funds them. The hospitals and the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies. And these hospitals don't want to deal with Medicare because then they won't be able to charge exorbitant prices for things like Advil. $2,000 for an Advil. $500 for a bag of saline. Like And here's the thing, right? This doesn't happen in the rest of the developed world. That's why they pay per capita half of what we do here in America, and yet are able to cover everyone under a universal healthcare system. Our system is incredibly broken, and that's why we need Medicare for all to fix it, because that's why we pay more than anyone else. That's why the hospitals are able to screw us over, and that's why they're fighting so hard against any sort of change to the status quo. Medicare for all, only way to bring down these costs. Not a public option, not a half measure, not Medicare Plus or whatever you want to call it, or Medicare for All X, or whatever plans the Center for American Progress come up with that isn't actually single payer. No, we have to have Medicare for all. We have to have single payer. We have to accept no middle ground. Okay. So let's go to Kamala Harris. So there's a disastrous news story about Kamala Harris back when she was the district attorney of California. So now Bloomberg is reporting that back in 2012, when she was serving as the state attorney general for California, her office had fought against reimbursement payments for people who were wrongly convicted of crimes. So wrongly convicted, wrongly imprisoned, had years of their lives stolen, and then of course, financial compensation is a way in which the government, state government, usually gives people back some sort of restitution for being, locked up when they weren't supposed to be, when they were actually innocent. But Harris, as AG, her office said no. That was super clunky, but you get it. Now, Bloomberg, in this piece, talks about Jose Diaz. Now, Jose Diaz was exonerated after serving about 9 years in a California prison for sexual assaults that he did not commit. Diaz was convicted in 1984 of rape and attempted rape, but was paroled in 1993 and had registered as a sex offender. So he served prison time, and he's like, okay, well, now that I'm out, I didn't do this. I maintain my innocence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fight to clear my name. And so, of course, for the next 19 years, he did exactly that and was ultimately successful. But even after he was successful at getting his conviction reversed, the state of California continued to fight him when it comes to compensation for being wrongfully imprisoned. And so where does Kamala Harris come to play? So the year was 2012. And basically that's following the reversal of his conviction. Diaz was fighting in order to get that restitution, while Harris's staff had resisted that compensation. And if that's not bad enough, her office tried to intimidate him by making him re-register as a sex offender, despite his formal ruling in April of 2013 that he was innocent. He did not do the crime. So, wait, he's innocent. Harris's office was like, yeah, you know what? I don't care. I don't care. If you're gonna try to get money from us, from the state of California, well then we're just gonna make you re-register as a sex offender. We don't care. We don't care. So now, remember, being a sex offender comes with pretty steep ramifications. For example, if there's areas that you can't live, it makes it very, very difficult to get a job. You have police coming in for unannounced visits. They have to, people have to know if you move into an area. And so for somebody who isn't actually a sex offender, who didn't actually do the crime, that's like living in a nightmare. So, I mean, I couldn't imagine, right? So now the Diaz case is only one of several cases that Harris's prosecutors had waged, both in the offices of San Francisco District Attorney and California Attorney General, to resist claims of innocence, often using what they call technical timelines or jurisdictional arguments, lawyers and innocent advocates say. So they're using technicalities. Like, you didn't file your paperwork on time. I guess you're still guilty. So re-register as a sex offender, and you're not getting any money. Well, that's ridiculous. Now, a Harris campaign had said, what? No, Harris never knew about this. She didn't know what was actually being litigated by her office, and said that it was rare for an attorney general to be made aware of cases before the state compensation board. I don't know if that's entirely true, but that's what Ian Sams had been saying. So now, if that's the case, what's interesting is that there were multiple documents in the case that appear on Harris's letterhead. You don't just give out your letterhead to anybody, right? And were signed by staff members with a notation under their names for Kamala Harris, Attorney General. Okay, all right. There's still a chance that maybe she didn't know what was going on. But her office made a habit of this, and in fact, they resisted at least 5 such claims despite compelling evidence of innocence. So now, either there are 2 different things, right? Either she's not a progressive prosecutor and knew about this, or she was one of the worst managers and DAs in California history. I don't know. So now let me give you some details, right, about some of the other cases. For one, there was Maurice Caldwell. So now, apparently, Harris's office repeatedly delayed responding to the innocence claims of Caldwell by filing for extensions as Harris ran for Attorney General in 2010. That had the effect of keeping Caldwell in prison for more than a year, despite evidence that someone else had committed the murder for which he was convicted. So it's going to give you an extra year of prison. Just, because we're running for office here. Great. Now, a judge, of course, admonished Harris's office for delays and even threatened to sanction that office. A state appeal court judge also criticized Harris's office for falsely claiming that the only eyewitnesses against Jamal Truelove in his murder case had fear for their life, making Truelove appear to be more sinister than what he actually was. The judge said the story was a yarn and made out of whole cloth. Truelove was convicted but later exonerated after 6 years in prison. Not only that, but you also have a resistance of an innocence claim of Daniel Larson by arguing that he hadn't filed for petition for release in a timely manner, and also contested his request for compensation after he was exonerated. Larson had been sentenced to 27 years to life for possession of a knife under California's 3 strikes law. Disastrous. Now, according to Harris's campaign spokesman, Ian Sams, he said this, quote, Kamala has fought to give ex-offenders a second chance ever since she created one of the nation's first major reentry programs back on tracks in San Francisco, which helped put people in jobs, not jails. Of course, she wishes she could have gotten more done, but she fought to clear the state rape pit backlog. Okay, that's good. In her first year, to ensure evidence is available in cases, and in the Senate, she's introduced a bill to increase pay for public defenders to improve the quality of defense counsel for individuals in their cases. Okay, that's good. But Sams did not respond to an email sent by The Intercept asking whether she was aware or personally involved in the Caldwell, Truelove, or Larson cases. I wonder why, because those cases look really bad. But back to Diaz. What they did to Diaz is even worse. After his conviction was vacated in September of 2012, Harris's office sent him a letter saying that he no longer had to register as a sex offender. Okay, but after Diaz filed for compensation, both the state compensation board and attorneys working for Harris challenged his right to any money. And then, by the way, their argument was that he hadn't obtained a formal judgment or acquittal, which he had received. And also, days later, Harris's office sent him a letter saying that he must, in fact, continue to register as a sex offender. Again, he had a formal judgment of innocence. So, disaster. Diaz said he believes Harris's office was trying to intimidate him out of seeking compensation. And Harris's office fought Diaz's right to compensation for about a year, and said that the Attorney General's office tried to block the claim by using detail filings. In October 2014, more than 2 years after his conviction was vacated, Diaz was actually awarded $305,000 for 9 years in prison. The requirement to register as a sex offender was also eventually dropped. So, look, terrible. This is awful. Now, look, is she personally involved? I'm not entirely sure. It wasn't exactly clear if she was the one giving the orders, but she didn't know what was going on in her office. These cases, and what was she doing as Attorney General? Well, I mean, look, let's be fair and point out that she has done good things, right? For example, she forced body cams for police officers, argued against the death penalty in certain cases, like, for example, a man that killed a cop, and instituted implicit bias training. So, look, all that stuff is good, because I don't believe in the death penalty, and so that's a good thing. I'd rather people go to prison; it's actually cheaper, and I don't like the idea of the state murdering people. So there's that. But okay, so there's some of the good things that she did. So there's a definite mixed bag here, right? In my opinion, that bag is mostly negative, but that's just me, especially in the sex offender thing. In fact, let me give you a quote here. Bruce Green, professor at Fordham Law School in New York, and a former federal prosecutor himself, who was chairman of the American Bar Association's Criminal Justice Standards Committee, said this, quote, of Kamala Harris. The idea that some innocent person should have to labor under the branding of sex offender for the rest of their lives because they didn't meet the technical requirements, that's just wrong. Well, look, I couldn't agree more. Whether or not you like Kamala Harris as a presidential candidate, you still have to look at her record as the Attorney General in California. And from what I've seen, that record ain't great. Progressive prosecutor? I think not. Okay. All right. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in, going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please consider becoming a patron as well, patreon.com/TYTNation to support independent progressive media. Thank you again. Much appreciated. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys later.